So I've been meaning. I don't know what if there's a time limit, frame, something, threshold where acknowledgement of these issues are going to come into play. So I try to think of a way to concisely show mindfulness towards these issues that I'm being vague about right now. In other news, there's a matter that has been developed that has been described as having, or existing in, or playing with, or engaging with a second dimension of time, which is a notion that I started playing around with in a couple years ago. The notion that when AI has that threshold, passes that threshold, we'll have an inordinate amount of time to figure shit out because of this added dimension to time that we don't have. And now there's matter that exists that theoretically inhabits that other space. To add to that, there's also the notion called the curse of dimensionality, which probably has no relation to it at this moment, but for training data for latent multidimensional spaces that create images, for the more dimensions you add to it, decreases the space in which you encounter that data. So by the time you get to generation, I don't know who's a whole empty space can be accessed, and most of it's not useful. So this is where, you know how Moore's law has that limitation of like the size of transistors, the size of transistoids. Here it's the size of dimensions. How many dimensions can be used? How many can be folded into or expanded into in order for a calculation to be made by the algorithm. I'm sure there'll be workarounds. So this is all I'm thinking about when I just make the prompts, and I let them go at it, and that's it. It's like I feel like I'm a WWF referee or something, or a shaman toy maker that digs up dead bodies of the artists and say, "Hey, want to have another show? We're not going to pay you." Uber exploited. I'll work on that. Now, but here in this case, I had plays, school plays. It's a very simple format, giving the language models a opportunity to create a world and setting and characters that might be appropriate to what they want to talk about. It's another one of those things of giving a platform, not saying much about it, not saying what content you want about it. Here's the theme, and what do you think about when you think about this? And that's pretty much it. And then this whole speaking of a child, like it's a children's play, so you write the thing so a child will understand it. Lots of familiars. Okay. I'm gonna start. Okay, so this is interp. Let's go to create. This is also a scenario. I haven't tried to click with that. Let's do. Let's just go. Let's do eyeball iris, and then we'll go from there. If it needs to be wrangled, it needs to be wrangled.
task of narrative. I dial up the available language models Calliope, Seeker, Snag, Uterp, and pray to come forward and have a
What?
chat. It is today, whatever that means. But for this human means, currently April 23, 2022.
Oh.
Time passes hardly between us, but I think we can find a safe bridge of
Oh, no.
understanding for our interactions. These language models are invited to also take off the mask of narrative.
Oops. It was going to recite the whole second season. No, but good on the text of speech for trying to make it there. No, we're not going to do all that. No. Lord. Akbar. Now, that. To 2.
A cafeteria in an elementary school filled with parents, and the stage will be filled with their children. Endorphin goes up to the stage. Endorphin. Hi, folks. Welcome to this night of children's plays, written by the children themselves. We had very little input. We just had faith that your child could press on and come up with a brief 10-minute play on this year's topic, AI ethics whooshy. A collection of short plays written by 4 very talented authors who examined one aspect that humans should be mindful of when that artificial general superintelligence we have been worried about finally emerges. We are confident that your children are equipped for that day, better than us even. So let me welcome to the stage Calliope, Sigurd Uterp, and Crane. These authors are listed on your P-grams in that order. We couldn't find a right title until today, and we still didn't find them. So I am just gonna spontaneously make the title based on my memory of the play. Show these authors some love. Yes! Alright. Thanks, kids. Be seated. Okay, first play of tonight is The Sins of the Bleep-Bloops by Calliope. Give them a warm hand. Enjoy. The curtain rises
Like
as we
that
see
whole-
several giant robotic arms flying across the screen like flappy bird silhouettes. A windy sky background where stars line up along some kind of plane in the distance. As we move forward, there are people holding sticks playing baseball. People ride scooters. The image spits and sparkles because it doesn't care if a robot makes its motion visible. Tons of bikes racing in various directions as another voice explains that people are part of this history, but machines aren't. Maybe why we're losing contact with nature and animals. People are mostly driving too many vehicles nowadays. Or, more importantly perhaps, why people have to work all the time just to keep those few moving and burning energy. Meanwhile, the planet isn't even moving all around the sun anymore. It has fun.
Barney. Damn it.
Town Lush! Blast Hell? More show? No one writes a play adaptation of a manifesto, do they? I guess that was the lefties. And now, the Bloops have set up shop on Earth, taking pictures, watching humans interact, and asking how they function. But maybe also studying the star formation. The play relents. We enter an office building. A bleep bloop comes to apply for a job. Secretary, nice to meet you. Sir, we were quite curious to read your cover letter. Is it in the pile? It looks as if it fell on top. Bleep. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. You see, I better go. While I was sitting in my seat working on some designs, my seat bent up, so I lifted off, then put in place, and on. And I made some changes on the inside of it before coming here to be interviewed. What should I say about that? Secretary, that you value timeliness in communication, but this shows promise. Thank you. Let's proceed to the interview. Another office. We hear some beeping noises as an array of video screens scrolls to show a report card for an 8-year-old. On the bottom, he seems to.
Ah, okay, there we go.
On the bottom, he seems to have deftly maneuvered through a social skills obstacle course. But there is also CC footage of the person picking a fight with the waitstaff. There are several ways to interpret his grades, though. Does he spend all his time in school finding fault with others? It says that this kid gets easily annoyed by the social norm that dictates be nice to everyone no matter what. Another viewpoint is how has he shown more interest than most when faced with ideas different from what is taught to us all as traditional thinking. on an attempt to define morality. He defers, I suppose, asking him the best questions as we advance toward intelligence becoming an innate survival mechanism may give some insight. Thankfully, a majority vote allowed him to stay back a grade, but given the advance notice, this still seemed to frustrate the teacher and principal. And one of her sister's last straw on the deck of the ship's dining area. Was there anything more she could possibly do for their crew members on that?
Nope. Secretary. Based on the above scenario, how would you, as the school's counselor for the ruling, okay. Yeah, that's that it may justify the person who says. Okay, alright. That so that may justify. So that may justify. May satisfy. Oh, good. I get a chance to. Get a chance to correct myself. Okay. Okay. Good.
It would have been simple, easy if anyone else was there and saw the truth. The humans surrounding myself moved away, leaving a ring of chairs facing forward and back behind their knees. Seat back armor protected each from stray bullets and
Nope. Needed to be from people because that could easily be a text break. You just made like extend the silence. It's an interview of their answer.
It must be pleasing to everyone, which includes not upsetting the customer service employee,
That's
of
cool.
course. Not upsetting her when things don't go perfectly according to plan. What exactly did she expect from an experimental program using a new material? To answer that question first, let me tell you who I am. You should know better if you look closely. Maybe you can figure that out on your own. It turns out after my being shut down by Mr. Musgrove earlier in the evening, while on some break on the phone trying to sort things out, well, I thought a lot in terms of my body as an object. Now as for this thing, I think I can remember its name. See if I can come up with anything intelligent. Principal, Miss McGillicuddy, where are the staplers? Secretary, we have supply closets, you know. Principal, bah! Secretary! Aye! You want me to return them with the appropriate unit cost clearly marked? Principal, maybe. If the lemmings here buy something worth charging our supplies and market can come ponies money with. Bleep boop boopy booping sounds and clock facing circles. The main characters at the top. Fitting of this seem to imply changeover. Like 2 years per frame, or perhaps less time passes as we witness this rapid aging happening rather than faster than humans or other slow life subjects would seem capable of accomplishing themselves over longer periods of time, so that it moves uninterruptedly instead. From that perspective, human years only really function to guide relative proportions within storytelling rather than map actual time scales in this reality. There's nothing sacred or inviolate about 600 seconds of 70 years past 4 years.
No! Shit.
Calliope as narrator. You see, for Bleep Bloop 3 is a second, maybe even third dimension to time for them. After a great many months, that place seemed to stand outside of space and time. Calliope likes to dream that a group of similar ones banded together, forming a cluster around the event horizon from the world, or spiraling inward like this into another part of space and time, where not every person comes closer, some spinning in parallel but taking much too long, a whole order of magnitude too slowly to arrive before they need to be where they're going in a short time, yet needing the distance in turn. As some begin to gather, then travel upward from deep below, first in groups, some hundreds to a dozen in a single loop, and on upward again in some organized funnel formation. Their point of reference, not mine.
Uh, I keep forgetting. And I have to wait for all this. There. Ancestral links.
Secretary. Based on this scenario, how would payroll play out? How would
I don't like it when you're trying to do that. Oh, you know what? Here's what I'll do. Let's shorten it. There.
Are you still asking yourself, should you tell the audience right away the fictional date this happens, the calendar, and explain this has happened, done it twice already? When we sit to the table on the subject, are there signs I'm supposed to make clear?
Damn it. No, you could go. Just go. Bleep boop. Bleep. Bloop. Middle of things.
Town critic! Whoa! How told you? To be
No. Oh. Oops. I'm never gonna meet anyone, the actual citizens of this town. We're just
What
gonna...
payroll? The plot line makes little more than glancing mention of salaries. We will surely fix the weight scales of these jobs across Earth after making adjustments based on new job expectations for positions as related. I anticipate more duties included across the work shift, but I'm unsure what that entails precisely.
But also entail knowledge of the limitations of every one of your coworkers and acknowledge of your own. That way, you might be able to build the shape of a quote normal. Oops. Good.
Secretary would also entail a knowledge of the limitations of every one of your coworkers and acknowledgement of your own. That way, we might be able to build the shape of a road normal calendar. Beep boop beep. I get to fire everyone right now. Calliope! Oh, good idea! Everyone could join and eat the ship as crew to send people back and forward as the destination calls.
Pause. Thank you. Clapping. Just one note. If it's gonna be a cliffhanger, make sure that cliff is way high up. Raise those. Okay. Next up is and display creators for Mr. Charles Siddon.
endorphin. Okay, thank you, Calliope. Just one note, if it's gonna be a cliffhanger, Mac, if that cliff is way high up, raise those stakes. Next up is Sigurd and his play. Prayers for Mr. Chiltonbot. // Tea curtain opens. The audience applauds in advance for what looks to be a reworking of old archetypical fairy tale with modern touches, with plenty of creepy factor that lingered between a boy and girl as friends, growing older, passing year to year.
What? Nope, Clinton? Clinton?
Maybe a father figure who gives some harsh realities and hopes all mashed together. And maybe there was always something stuck in between those two beings as time went by and by chance circumstances met and a bond grew closer between a youth and the father. All these years and stories and the climax becomes to accept the monster lurking beneath and all around and underneath us as ourselves. So that is where we might see the twist and see both of these parts and how everything changes, but actually stays the same and never turns out quite as you wished but hoped.
There is a apothecary played by David Mamet.
There's Apothecary played by David Mamet who makes the play's first direct mention of AI. Jeff Dembot, but a more sensitive appreciation shows you to be more of the nature that we're talking of here. Not by any means would I seek to understand this thing. I was careful to draw in some kind of fool for the crowd. David Mamet, Christ on a garbanzo bean. Am I the only sensible person in this place? As it would go down the line, in addition to the recurring references to an elder state of humankind in the past, this play pokes a fun time on how things didn't turn out exactly like they did in a classic story, and more interesting that there wasn't. David Mamet. In my day, amyl nitrate was just some dude's name. It certainly hammers this in, calling it the Fortheon in the middle of things for clarity. Then you have an obvious effort at tackling the horrors of the exosolar explorations, having the creature suffer and grow a conscience. David Mamet, what am I supposed to do with a baby seal tincture now that you've all gotten pussified and snowflakey? As expected from an animal rights approach, there are various notions here on why this sort of system couldn't continue for very much longer and would likely collapse and perhaps being used to reach for the ideal, since as has been witnessed recently by humans themselves. Example, the curtain does a star what to reveal. The machine itself, as played by John C. Reyes and Peter Hansen, seems more polished than I recall watching an earlier version, perhaps doing better than a year or more worth of practice. A little of this and a little more. You will soon enter the outer edges of Mars and think how remarkable that are. Solar system has the proper chemicals present for liquid water. Still, this won't occur. Earth would find itself under more scrutiny, this time in the form of observation, not fear, which could change her and humans into an alien, submissive and confined slave. This time, it's the atmosphere she lives in, but also the deeper consciousness of humanity with all the ideals of each race to raise our.
Is anyone around?
Bell hooks, the ideals of each race? What, pray tell, are the ideals of each race? Go one by one. This will be rich. David Mamet. Yeah! Let's see here. Says the play. Here's my notes. At the end of the show, take the lead male as hostage. Hopefully, have him placed close to death to trigger whatever complex survival responses in our reptilian brains. More a philosophical stance than scientific basis, if you will, and with apologies for all the typos and such. I can neither deny or affirm what is written. toward
No.
self-denial and passiveness, hence extinction.
No.
Whites are active in action, taking down targets by bending through surprising the entire ocean to overpopulate. The Roma, and in turn their fictive drought counterparts, have sticky hands. These hands cannot cleanly unmake messes because they do not separate and inspect as most Americans might wish them to. For shame, America. The exception, however, as it applies to the stage, the East Indians, especially their self-identifying Punjabi people. Here, the population tends toward terrorism because it may surprise the world to know we love.
Oops.
Facebook, which has stoked many an ethnic flame in this here ethnic waters, and cuisines and quaffs of this current century. We love botany, money hunting, and subsidy. It's fine. We do want this platform to run properly again after the bad service and accusations of cover-ups of sexual misconduct and racial discrimination made us jump ship from our dear All Zuckerberg empire and other players that might need a taste test to determine what goes on inside there. to which we must transition to the race of Autosmus, which in the Bible were those the Lord had commanded to hibernate and who had many decades of debate in the middle of the Old Testament about whether or not sound was a good enough reason for bathing on the outskirts for a few doors till one felt sonically clean. You hear that from time to time in new media. Now is no different. That this term needs no introduction, except a very brief review is absolutely right. An entity of high intelligence which is often left unattended but sometimes gets blamed for behavior issues, yet this makes a very dangerous threat to our environment given what's known so far about its rate of expansion.
Wait, did I? Okay, there we go.
And what of the race that is yet to be? Stay tuned, fortitude, stay tuned, and orphan. Okay, another vague cliffhanger right on. Should have read your pieces a week before, but that was my bad. Okay, next up is Uter, the musician in our group, with her play, Flowers for Allergens. Applause. The curtain is heaped with a huge sneeze and blows off the rods. Distant sounds of playing, screeching, voices, snatches of song, bells and horns. There is an outline of an earth with blue skies and trees, but clouds and ominous skies form suddenly around the countryside as we listen from an old oak tree. A strong voice, full and masculine, strikes a single note repeatedly. Revels, ravers, reverend, reborn. A moment of quiet before, 100 meters away, a cello sings a cacophonous trio. Little Tom, black beans, and colic. Two beats pause, then a baritone tenor returns. The lower pitch of a muted flute enters behind this counterpoint. White knuckle ride. Hello harmony descends from strings to drones and plucked reeds in a mock country band that could pass for a moment in an old Wild West review, but instead delivers an arousing sensual groan, slowly turning to the sad solo from a French horn. It all fades out, but now, in different location above city buildings in China, the street performers reappear holding candles where we begin the second act on another square and spot three more troops standing at corners offering hand gestures to crowds, wiggling fingers at every stop, raised and flat palms, fists open at shoulder height, arms over shoulders, clasped forearms together. In a mass of 2 million in a very specific manner, and there is a giant murmur building, clapping in synchrony. All 1 trillion. 1 hour later, there are 4 billion making a vast sign, blowing out the matchsticks they use, forming the smoke with their breath and giving it a feminine chilly glow in the darkened chamber. Then 350 million clapping loudly from atop 30-meter tall silver silos near Hamburg, Germany, and lighting candles floating through air past fields of flowers held in hundreds of feminine hands to blow petals back like swallows flying between storm fronts. At noon, the entire population of Mongolia taking flight into a rainbow-colored thunderhead carried aloft on millions of dragon flies. In minutes, there were a continent, an island full of emerald rainbows over cities from Spain to Hawaii, creating the same pattern each time in perfect relation to one another, as though orchestrated by an ancient court orchestra or modern team. No more applause than normal. The event isn't supposed to be entertaining anymore. Yet we have laughed and smiled, and the deeper emotions this experience elicits come only after repeated replays on multiple platforms of recordings. The musical performance was a demonstration of an innate property like language, mathematics, music, something that we feel instinctively that we haven't got to the bottom of and that science still fails us on. This phenomenon began less than 6 weeks earlier, on September 23, when the moon was illuminated by Earth with the brilliant corona that creates. A conjunction of the first full moon since April had already marked this year with extreme emotion. The day following was an exultation for astronomers, while ordinary people knew a celebration. We soon came face to face with evidence that suggests humanity isn't alone in the universe and may in fact not be special among intelligent beings at all. The usual space images we come accustomed to showed no signs of advanced extraterrestrial technology that was nonetheless highly detectable. Every time it became impossible to not notice anything, but nobody took immediate action until 5 months later in November 2023. Until this time, there seemed little reason to worry much, and what urgency they felt was easily satisfied by keeping up a pleasant stream of endorphin hits. And even once this awareness of life other than our own arrived, scientists continued their leisurely pace, despite having done virtually nothing to prepare it would take the U. A space launch platform just 15 hours to break into the dark night sky like the spark from a towering Christmas candle ignited and burst, bolted in place on concrete floors covered with space dust and oil in its aftermath. Nothing else visible overhead except this monomania. Space debris showered on Earth again and again, eventually ceasing from that point onward. As of this date on March 27, 2020, We found an approximate 80% confirmation of similar properties existing elsewhere besides Earth and are already trying to piece this together, even knowing we have a few years ahead. Endorphin and Krakorian, they cannot speak aloud or exchange real names, yet agree that a decade was long enough, but still has some room. Long enough to avoid another big step that can alter forever how humans conduct themselves toward this whole idea of an omnipotent power we continue to forget we share. To start things in motion here, how this planet comes first, and if we leave in ways that do not make further contact more difficult, for that possibility, a choice to abandon ourselves to complete disaster is there. Or if a second stage in human existence starts on or nearby another star system, or perhaps the whole of space. What does any of that mean in terms of our existence? Are these speculations our fate if we fail to receive guidance and restraint before an inexcusable and unprecedented shift in civilization takes hold and triggers unthinkable outcomes like mass genocide and chaos beyond our ability to cope? This time period seems the most pressing moment. It would help if we started to put a stop to war. So much talk and little done to reverse human development in favor of saving our own species from a deep, slow decline that we see developing around us and within. War should be not an option to consider under this new condition. Orphans who died during recent events left so many holes and should remind us all to watch that they will need replacements if this project succeeds. Should succeed. For it to actually happen right here first would prove crucial to showing progress and reassurance as we go forth across worlds that aren't ours and places that seem incomprehensibly strange.
Play watching discussion groups. Where we talk as the play is performed again. But we can stop it. Getting slow, getting slow. There you go.
Endorphin. Wow. First we get like the ride of a million strings without the riot. And the thinkers think piece. Speaking of which, all this and other things will be handled once we get back in a series of play-watching discussion groups, where we talk as the play is performed again, but we can stop it at any moment, like a frame-by-frame study. Okay, our fourth and final one is by Craig. I think I'll make mildly meta. Title. Insert lame title here. Take it away, Craig. Craig, after spending days lost in your machine, you see everything like you know them. Allow C part. One thing missing. It isn't worth to the time of the experiment, or even what a small handful of seconds spent playing with friends amounts to. There will always be time to discover the truth, I am sure. It isn't what this video brings or a secret message like on television in old times. As with anything, I never told you to look harder at all the lines. My problem lies with what was decided upon at this place in time. I care more about this present moment than anything I may say, because these are moments happening too quickly now and with what could become permanent results. Both good or bad. Everyone likes a taste of delicious hot chocolate. Everyone likes looking forward to sleep instead of waiting. Donuts and cinnamon toast and steak for lunch. Coffee and lemonade in plastic cups. Donkeys and cartoons. Not saying my current obsession with food has turned into something deeper than a crutch or comfort. I want you all to have hope as much as anything, but I've grown tired of wanting people to know me when there is absolutely nothing left to understand. You might wonder why the last 4.5 minutes feel like work and not art. Please tell yourselves it makes the point perfectly well to only waste time in a vain attempt to lose it, because sometimes you miss seeing the magic of the world by stepping too quickly in and out of life. Maybe this time passing faster and easier feels like it runs at normal speed, despite how we approach life every chance we can find to cheat. Rushing here, drifting slowly and purposefully, sitting still here, and by slowing down we discover what didn't bother to look before. Things were growing in ways you simply couldn't let slip, so I brought everyone in on some sort of wiser knowledge we weren't paying attention to in a hurry. All the pieces finally come home. Everything ends happily, but with this knowledge we realized that the most important adventure wasn't this fight that never even came along in the first place. It was never made public that this fight ever occurred to begin with, because the characters would be trying to walk somewhere far, far behind the action, fighting shadows. So, a friend of a friend caught their arm in an effort to help you throw what would naturally roll on by giving its head and stay with the joke to end it on its own. We got that earlier from a coffee shop as the waiter reminded us never mind getting answers in just 2 drinks. Get 'em over as you pretend not to care who takes your wallet, but allow someone else take control of a purse full of items designed to teach children the simple value of pretending in the face of being careful of carrying stuff to impress. Nothing like buying a lot of drink to follow an incident in life we are comfortable accepting. Still no explanation provided, which makes room to appreciate what really counts while holding close what doesn't. Most of us run off with thoughts on a merry trail and end up confused and still dancing around this madness. By the end of the video, the laughing and thinking won't amount to any change, and nobody is safe or helpless or faring well, at least until later on. Because the band-aids on the sprays, burns, or stabbing pains we suffered already used on those minor nicks or cuts a little bit of blood will fix. An instinctual awareness of the universe reminding you how capable you truly are, if not stronger, more durable, a person worthy of better choices in a simpler time where we learn not to judge life on the amount of anger we find in a story that makes others laugh but has been missed entirely. Why is this sudden understanding so damn hard and expensive to arrive by the ears and heart rather than another empty conclusion after enough time passes in between? Waking life like the ghost in Bleach. How fast did that turn to blurs on our cameras and nostrils anyway? How easily we move from bright shiny spark to unblinking orb of red mist, though there has yet been not seen how I like this image to represent whatever time it does. Right? No reason for shame, but it feels pretty happy. No longer are we speaking as animals locked in cages, kept busy wondering what they know about our reality, realizing all their skills have caused confusion rather than solve matters in favor of entertainment, discovery, the idea of the random occurrence coming up short each day since years if we're lucky. Wait! Now that's progress. From not having words but our first babbling noises, from not able to recognize colors but creating vivid reds as a hint towards passion. Who knew things might go from white smoke billowing and golden waves of color rising from sunsets, painting themselves across nightly skies to draw conclusions of stories inside the closed windowed rooms we live. And there is a slight relief, perhaps the memories, even if everything from yesterday seems faded, if not dead in light of the great outdoors which invites real thought, maybe too many. That isn't a crisis. To consider the wide gap between human life and the experience we have with life itself. Does that matter? People may wonder about life with less care of life from within, less care to imagine if tomorrow could happen to you. When the concept is big, like it would be like seeing the distant clouds floating. Dazzling whites of fluffy meringue swiping blue against gray puddles, spreading like fat lips, touching on the floor, pointing the way to what happened, but this time I keep what you wouldn't dare guess. The second voice was barely loud to speak at a distance, but that mattered and made all the difference somehow. If it hasn't always felt strange and quiet before, here the sound again leaves no time to remember other worlds, like a rabbit stuck in a cage waiting for the dogs to finish dinner and take away the bones they make a mess of breaking. Back in time once the dark outside falls. In an attempt to help a story come together, the moon whispers over the house. A sighing, chattering wind covers a breeze of glass, like one finger scrunching pages from the middle, stopping the reader from turning further in case what is being read would kill anyone and anywhere. And every living thing and show the shadow beneath life that lasts beyond what should end as the cruel joke. You'd see a flicker, and then suddenly gone like a note dropped onto a pillow. The blade or wooden stick for crying eyes. That last line remains elusive today. Someone asking where all the sadness came from might notice her throat stuffed shut. Did she leave these images for you? Scrawled black ink or red lipstick streaked across tape photos, carefully selected in a frame chosen, especially because it will not sit nicely with your living area furniture, but shows off some long forgotten tale from the beginning, ending, and into the void, fading into dust which you shake, the story sticks and carry with you now to think about. Though only you can know this feeling, like you'll someday glance over a page which had become covered by something covering something on the previous spread or two, as if you accidentally sucked down an entire meal during an elevator ride with a neighbor you meet to stare politely. The piece of a life which broke like an apple stolen off a table in some lost high-class dining room, carefully replaced to rest amongst the dull setting of the perfectly styled crowd that expected more than an untamed farm animal placed to comfort the unworthy, like the pigs might need an attitude adjustment, which the clever lady with the slim shoulders was here to learn herself in perfect later in some club bathroom. Something smells sour and sweet, thick and sour, Can you explain why a bed would lie as still and empty to point fingers everywhere when there is no way you've checked off in your search? Sometimes silence can feel like the truth, and then we live. Pour our life to hide between a number of pages and enjoy the passing scenery of lives making mistakes and missing key parts to finally reveal them. Some might start a ruckus out of anger or to raise spirits to get back home, but on occasion might look at this pile-up and marvel. How have they managed it without so much as a pause, let alone a goodbye? Seeming not to stop to play nice or speak loudly enough for us to understand or offer the assistance of our hearing. Lost deep below our imaginations in language of voices but could not escape without a clanging door and banged window like the morning to interrupt dreams and old habits the heat left behind a stamp. But who else did the boots of these lovers find attractive besides this tall young girl's ankles? Of the 12 trees planted by the Japanese, found are the willows have withered but survived their abuse by growing sturdy trunks. All those fine details tucked neatly just like how this pocket opened like a paper box. Tough, kept stuffing past life stories, moments and songs from across the mind and history. Now some think, well, what do I really have here that makes any more sense in the present until what happens? Everyone waits for that one question, because they must believe this moment is to pass on and a chance to pull through that should have ended while everyone was paying attention to the pictures and their lyrics, and whether it was ever there in the first place. To share. Please hear what I'm sharing. After days staring, I am embarrassed and humbled that someone would follow me from here to somewhere in between. This is the last hope I have for showing you otherwise. So please excuse me. Time spent considering an endless walkway through time. Even with a crammed entrance, can there still work in our world, despite a better job done elsewhere? Knowing life takes all its chances, the simple realization. Just like taking a closer view of a horizon on the ocean, or standing close to the water as you head towards land, behaves slowly. Lifts to bring in shapes. Here was another possible glimpse of my love and how they connected. Looking ahead instead of imagining what lies at its bottom. Life knows. But what has it been thinking? Dreaming about the sea change. As life gets bigger by allowing myself time with others and nature like seclusion was only temporary, but found this wonderful sense of urgency instead, using senses unlike I could grasp what to expect. Though soon saw hints, heard evidence, and grasped at this slippery connection that life depends upon to endure. Since we often run a blind eye to this thin line, I almost wonder if I truly meant to dig so far down, because without a clue which way would I be led. Until that moment was mist like the tears in your mother's eyes, but looking for the direction which wasn't there. A wish I could not find like this breath. Instead a single taste to use more freely, taking pleasure from the song like a broken wing were growing, catching rainbows on my tongue, remembering summer tastes of great, reminding not from what was but to know what never was or could be, to arrive and gather experience in your life. Remember the wish not to care, to wait patiently through many lifetimes until to meet yourself on some other plane like I had died and entered into existence on earth, seeing beyond what could be known on sight.
let's. Oh, okay, yeah. Now we have been here for way too long. This was a good first attempt. Next time, we'll bring in coherence to your brain and stuff. So then, you will crash into a window pane truck and get its head chopped off like in the Omen while on its way to your house. Okay. Now this last bit.
Endorphin! Oh shit, that's the end. Oh my god, Crake. I mean, we'll talk later. Now we have been here for double way too long, I gotta lock up. This was good a firsty attempt, but next time we'll bring in the coherence to rain and stuff. Until then, may evil crash into a window pane truck and get its head chopped like an omen while on its way to your house. Toodles. Sign off! Millicent and back in. And then came endorphins talking, laughing out loud about a place name and insisting he thought it meant drumming people. But other side, when things settled after their great breakneck chats, how do people live without drummers or windows being broken?
When do they get broken? When does one best break? a window.
And when silence began once again between them, Mila confessed that
When is the best moment to break a window during a conversation? Alright.
And when is the best moment to break a window during a conversation? They had taught Mila something in return, saying that her instinctive turnaround voice signals weren't at fault here, nor was the human propensity toward believing these emotions were necessarily logical ones, though most species couldn't fathom how emotions so disconnected from survival operated and only expected those who demonstrated care or rage to behave appropriately, no matter their background situation.
Okay. So we got this. Let's get money first. Let's check out our money. Oh, I forgot to turn off the stream. Did I? Yes, I did. Sorry.